Welcome to the Center for Transformation Institute podcast, where we are uniting with therapists everywhere for personal and professional growth. Your journey starts here at the place therapists grow.
So I'm thinking about a situation where years ago my husband was pastoring and I was able to talk to a group of people about joyful identity and what it means. And I remember just meditating on that as I brought that to the table. As a group of Christians, I wanted to be able to present to my fellow Christians what it means to have strong, joyful belonging, what it means to have a group identity. And I found myself going to the scripture and looking at what the word has to say about it and really recognizing that this is what the Bible talks about when it talks about unity, the unity of believers and the bond of peace. And I was able to articulate that with my group, but it's been something since that experience of speaking to that group that I've meditated on so often. What does it mean to have a strong, joyful identity with a group? And so often as the church, we can be in situations at church or with other Christians where it doesn't feel like we're having a joyful identity. It feels more like this is a stressful identity, or maybe you don't like me and there's competition or enemy mode, like Life Model talks about. And I think that that has been one of the concepts that's been so powerful to me about Life Model in terms of creating belonging and joyful connection, joyful identity. So my name is Monica Maurer, and I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also the director of the Center for Transformation Institute. And here at our institute, we are a group of therapists who have found this model that's been super helpful for us as therapists, the Life Model. And we've adapted it and applied it to our lives as therapists. And as we've done that, we've seen such transformation in our own lives, but we've also been strategic to incorporate it in the lives of our clients, our clientele, and we've noticed huge breakthroughs and amazing things that have happened that we know are related to these conceptualizations that really are the blend of biblical Christianity and our most current neuroscience. And the Life Model presents these concepts and interweaves them in profound ways that we haven't found as therapists anybody else has really done. So we feel like we have like a gold mine here in terms of strategies, and we want to be able to get the word out there to other therapists. So we are working with Life Model Works and have been empowered by them to get a continuing education curriculum out there for therapists so that therapists can access this. So we're working on getting the actual CEs approved with MBCC, and we're in the process of that. But right now we're just trying to conceptualize this and get some information out there to therapists so therapists can take it in and start to apply it in their own lives and with clients. So in this episode, I want to talk a bit about joyful identity and what it means. In our culture, so much we're seen through the lens of our weaknesses. We hear people saying things like, oh, that person's showing their true colors now, or, oh, I guess I didn't really know who you were until tough times came and then you acted like this, And in Life Model, we would say that that's an incorrect or maladaptive way to see another person, in that if we can view the world through the lens of, and all of us as individuals through the lens of, we have a true identity that's our redemptive person, and other modalities we call it the core self. But when we look at a human, we see that there's a true identity, but then there's also a wounded part, right? And that part's maladaptive, but it's the part that has adapted to life's difficulties, to act out of a place of woundedness. And I think for myself as a child, I thought my wounded identity was my true self. I thought I was just mean, or I was just bad, because in my pain, I would act in self-preserving ways. And then that became more of my dominant identity in my mind than my joyful identity. And I wasn't in touch with my joyful identity. And I have a sense as I'm working with clients that so many aren't in touch with their joyful identity. Our joyful identity is who we are, what it means to really be us. In Life Model, we say, what does it mean to be you? What does it mean to be us? What does it mean to live from the prefrontal cortex, my truest sense of self, rather than from the back of my brain and in my responses to my trauma, right? So if we want to help ourselves and our clients develop a strong, joyful identity, a true identity, we first have to understand it. And I'm thinking about clients in my mind right now, and of course, because of confidentiality as therapists, we can't just put all that out there. However, I'm thinking in my mind right now about a couple situations where it was like we were at a loss, because this person was living from their core pain, that all of their behaviors were rooted in their pain. So it was hard for them and myself even to identify, like, who are you outside of this? And I think that's where we have so much opportunity as Christians and as therapists to have a vision, to be able to discern what does it mean for this person to act from their true identity. I think in marriages, we want to be able to do that. We can see our spouse through the lens of their core wounds and how they act out of those, or we can ask God to give us a vision for who is this person? What's their redemptive self look like? It's essential for us to be able to see that in another person if we're going to help them heal. It's essential. And Life Model has a handout, actually the Thrive curriculum with Chris and Jen Kersey. They have a main pain, main heart characteristics handout that's very effective, and they use it in their Thrive training. And in that handout, you're able to see that there is the way I act out of my pain, and then there's a direct correlation to what that means about my true identity. I think the first thing on that list is love. If my main heart characteristic is love, then in my pain, I'm going to act in a rejecting way, where I isolate myself and reject others before I'm rejected. Because I'm such a loving person, it's hard for me to sit with someone when I feel rejected, because I'm so loving. Wilder calls it the light that blinds, right? That when I am such a loving person, it's so hard for me to be rejected, because love is so important to me. And I feel so wounded in this rejecting experience that I shut down and I actually act unloving, even though I'm so loving. And I think it's hard for clients to understand that perspective. And what I'll do when using that handout is I'll explain it in detail, try to give examples of it, of the concept, but then give them this handout so that they can move into that space of understanding it for themselves and for their spouse, their significant other, and really challenge them. I'll say to them, like, imagine like you have a little mini-me inside of your head of your true identity, and that you're really incorporating it. And oftentimes in sessions, especially in group sessions, we do this every session of group session, but in individual sessions, either I'll make a list of adjectives, or I call it adjectives or images, or an essences of who that person is, and I'll reflect it back. Because as individuals, we can't see ourselves outside of the lens of how others view us. So we know, because of mirror neurons in the brain, that we reflect identity to one another. We can either reflect accurate identity or inaccurate identity. It's kind of like this idea that you're acting like this, when you're acting out of your pain, you've acted like this, but that's not who you are. This is who you are. And your pain and the way you act in your pain is actually an indicator that your true identity is a direct 180 from that core pain, right? It's actually completely opposite. And so it's an indicator. And what Dr. Wilder would say is like, it's just like you to go and retreat into your bedroom when you feel that pain, because you're such a loving person. That we can help our clients see that, of course, you're going to act like that because you're so this, you know, and help them see that in themselves. And if they can have that kind of mini me inside of their head, that image of what it means to be them, that when they're in their pain, even when they're not in our presence as therapists, when they're in their pain and they're stuck in it, they can pull out that list maybe that we've given them of adjectives of who they are in their true identity. They can meditate on it. They can see images. They can feel the body sensations. They can have the beliefs around it that they attach to that can help them feel like the person that they are, even in the midst of their pain. And I think that's really where breakthrough is going to come for our clients. When they can see themselves, even when they're in their pain, they can see themselves through the lens of their truest self, their true identity, and they can really believe it. And how are they going to believe it except for the fact that we're speaking it over them? Because of the mirror neurons, they need somebody. And if everybody in their life is giving them an inaccurate identity reflection based on their trauma, then what chance do they have? And we're not just, as therapists, just speaking, you know, just giving lip service and just making them feel good about themselves when it's not true. It's true. This is truly who you are. Now let's go act it out. Even when your dominant action is your false identity. And that's where, you know, toxic pain, toxic shame versus healthy shame come in, and we'll talk about that in future episodes. And I know I've talked about it in past episodes, but it's where this intersection of who I really am, my default mode network, versus who I really am versus the default that I go to, whether that be enemy mode, self-protection, coping, but trying to maneuver through life and life's difficulties, life's circumstances, through the lens of how can I be my best self, even in increasingly difficult situations.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Place Therapists Grow. We hope you will join us next Monday. To expand your knowledge and continue your growth journey, go to cftinstitute.com and take our assessment. See you next time.